Welcome everybody to another episode of Memories of Us. Today we got Claire Schwartz, and Claire's here. We're going to talk about trauma and grief. This is her field. She's an amazing person, very intelligent, and we're here, and we're going to just put a lot of things on the front street. So hopefully you guys enjoy this episode. Claire, how you doing today, girl?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good. Pretty good. How about yourself?
I am doing well. It's it's an honor to have you on the show today.
And, thank you kindly. I'm very pleased to be here.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to diving into this conversation and everything. So if you could just tell the audience about who you are and the work that you do.
Once upon a time. So people always say, do what you know. And so turns out grief and trauma is what I know. And that might sound dark and heavy to some folks, but it's just my truth. So I guess the way to start the story would be that things are not always what they seem. From the outside, it looked like I came from a very sort of pristine story background. I came from a middle-class family, lived in a nice house, went to a private school, had lots of education, lots of privilege. But on the inside, that's not what was happening. So there were a lot of misconceptions, definitely back in the 70s and 80s, about how family was supposed to be. We didn't talk about violence in the home. We didn't talk about abuse and neglect. We didn't talk about so many of the things that are hopefully getting a little bit more common to talk about now, but it was not discussed. There was family, and it was sort of a sacrosanct topic, and we didn't cross over into that, into those uncomfortable subjects, private subjects. Right. But so I was an only kid, so there was no rehearsal before me. And I
understand.
Yeah. But so the long and the short of it is that neither of my parents really had a template for what to do with a kid. And my mother was a prodigy, so she didn't go through normal schooling at all. She had a career from the time she was about 6 or 7 as a concert pianist, and she was playing with the symphony by the time she was 10, graduated high school at 16, went to an exclusive music academy in Philadelphia, graduated at 20, then went to Europe on a Fulbright scholarship. So she didn't have, quote unquote, normal upbringing. Plus she was in the shadow of my uncle, who was a famous pianist for his 80-some year career. So being a girl, she was always in his shadow because she was younger. But so she didn't have a normal path. But she did know she wanted a child. My father didn't have a normal path because he wasn't from here. He was from Romania. Grew up poor, 4th floor walk up, no bathroom in the house, no running water. But he pursued a career in piano. And so that's how he ended up on the same trajectory as my mother. But he didn't come to this country until 1965. So even though he lived through World War II and the Holocaust, he couldn't get out for 20 years after the war ended. So he was still in Eastern Europe. So that's how he was built, was Eastern European thinking, right? Mm-hmm. So he and my mother got together here, ended up in Detroit, and I came around 1969, and then they were like, well, what do we do? What do we do with this one? And so my dad didn't know what to do with an American girl who was smarter than he was when I was knee high to a grasshopper. So he was just confused a lot of the time. And, he had a certain way of thinking about how things should be done in a household. And so he, and if that template was not followed, things did not go well. And add into the equation, I'm going to skip some bits. Let's just say by the time I was around 6 or 7, I was already, my first memory, actually a trauma memory, and of getting yelled at for something that I shouldn't have been yelled at for, and getting laughed at by grownups. So my mother developed a lot of back issues, which meant she couldn't play the piano anymore. So she was effectively disabled and not only couldn't play, but really couldn't work. Never worked my entire childhood. And she was stuck taking care of her parents. So my grandmother had a stroke, so stuck taking care of her parents, who she didn't altogether like, because there was there was a trauma mixed in there as well. But so things were very tense in my house. Nobody knew what to do with each other, and nobody knew what to do with me. You can't teach what you don't know.
Right.
So nobody raised me because nobody knew how. So thankfully I ended up in a school for gifted kids, because I had 160 IQ when I was 4, but I didn't get social raising. And when that doesn't happen, we sort of get stuck in that mental state of mind that you were when the trauma happens. Right. So as I got older, and the traumas in our house sort of snowballed. There was a lot of domestic violence. There was abuse and neglect. And so I, say, well, but you went to a private school. That was wonderful, right? Well, yes. And in a lot of ways, the school saved my life, because it was some of the teachers there who knew I was in trouble. They didn't quite know how bad it was, but they knew something was wrong.
Right.
And that became my sanctuary. But going to, a private school with a bunch of rich kids who always had the best of everything and the latest of everything, and I had holes in my clothes, and I dug through the garbage for pop cans for money, because I never got any money, and $20, $30 allowance in the 70s was a lot of money, but I never had that. I had to go dig through the garbage for my $5 in pop cans, which I could do in about a week. And then I felt rich because I had my $5. But when I was, by the time I got to college, emotionally, I was about 8 and really confused a lot of the time, because I didn't understand socializing. I didn't speak people. and people reacted to me very strangely, because they were like, what's And so I asked a very astute friend of mine many years ago, what was your impression of me back then? And he thought for a minute, and he said, well, I kind of felt like you were a little immigrant child who was new to this country and didn't know how to behave, which is really dead accurate, because that's who raised me. So that's how I behaved. And I got, of course, and we never went on vacations. We never went to movies. I never saw Star Wars. So, by the time I got to college, I was even odder. And of course I went out of control because I wanted to do everything. Right. I did a little too much of everything, and nearly failed my freshman semester. rattled around for quite a while before I found my footing. By that time, through my college years, you could add more, of course, choosing the wrong relationships because I had no idea. Right. And adding more abuse, adding rape, adding cancer. So by the time I got done with college, I had wound this collection of stuff. Now, mind you, I started counseling when I was 16, but it was a big secret because this was the mid 80s. Everybody was like, why is Claire leaving algebra? And it was like, so I had to like sneak out of school. But because I couldn't frame what was going on with me, nothing really worked because I couldn't frame the problem. So nobody could give me the right tool without understanding what the problem was. Right. So I was just sort of careening around trying to figure myself out. And in the midst of all of that, my parents' marriage imploded because it was never going to survive. And it was long and ugly. And they split up in 90. I'm not even sure of the exact date. I want to say 91 is when it started. But my mother moved out in 93. So they were separated, and she moved back to the East Coast. And because I didn't really understand my wiring and how the characters had played out, I blamed my mother for pretty much everything. And it's mostly because now as I understand it, mostly because she didn't handle it as well as she could have, but also because she couldn't really protect me from my dad and his temper. So I didn't speak to her. She didn't come to my college graduation. I had my dad there. And so that got very tangled up. And then she kept sending me letters that I ignored. And until one night in 1995, my phone rang at a little before midnight, and it was my uncle in New York who blurted out to me, "I don't quite know how to tell you this, but your mother has died." And my world completely crashed. The way I describe it in my book is I made a sound that only dying animals make. I can hear that sound in my head. Mm-hmm. And the world just fell apart. And because not only I hadn't spoken to her in 2 years, so there was that level of guilt. And once I started to take a look at my life, I suddenly realized I had no idea who I was because everything was built around the trauma and surviving it. And I looked inside and I went, there's nothing. It's not that there was nothing there, but I didn't see myself there. All I saw was the coping. All I saw was the anger. All I saw was just the desperate grasping for making sense of the world. I was just struggling to understand. Gee, I wonder why I got a psychology degree. So basically I dropped everything in my life. At that point, I couldn't work. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I tried sleeping all day because at night my nightmares scared me too bad. So I tried sleeping all day. That didn't work so well. So I said, okay, well, I'm going to sleep at night, but if I drink all day, then I won't have the nightmares. That didn't work either. So
it doesn't. It really
doesn't. No. So so that was sort of the beginning of me hitting bottom. Really, for the first time, was hitting bottom. And so I had a nervous breakdown basically for 3 months, and I was going to therapy twice a week. Wasn't doing nothing. And so I finally crawled my way up, sorta, and said, well, okay, I guess I should go back to work. I don't know what I do next. Well, a few months after that, my father needed quadruple bypass and almost didn't make it. And something hit me. And I remember that moment. I was sitting in the parking lot of the hospital, and I found out that he was okay. He made it through the surgery, which we weren't entirely sure of. And it hit me like a bolt of lightning. Like, what am I doing? What am I doing with my life? Wait a minute. It could like that.
Yeah.
Things can end like that. Like, I'm 26 years old. What am I doing? And I knew two things. I had to get away. I had to get out of Detroit and come to New York. And I had to try my hand at the acting career that I wanted. That was April 1996. And by August, I was in New York. Well, of course, I was completely unprepared for New York.
Yeah. I don't think anybody can really prepare yourself for New York.
You need some stuff.
Yeah. That's like going to California and going, I'm going to try my hand. Yeah. No, you might want to do some
you're going to plop
first.
yourself. There's a few places you got to be real careful plopping yourself into. And New York is one of them, because it'll eat you.
Yes, it will.
And it did. And, I got fired from my first job. I didn't make any friends. I didn't know how to handle myself. I got an apartment too far from Midtown. So it was just, again, a series of trial and error, Don't do this, don't do that, don't do that. Oh, really don't do that. So it's because you got to learn somehow.
This is very true.
But as blessed and lucky, and eventually, got myself to the right therapist, who was a trauma specialist. Again, by a fluke, recommended by somebody who was his client also. But in the meantime, I always knew I wanted to do the psych work, but I kind of got lost along the way about how to do that. So I spent 15 years working in like the legal and corporate worlds, learned a lot. You got to learn with everything. Even if you get off your chosen path for a while, there are always lessons to be learned. So the business side is very important, but the what I'm really supposed to be doing, which is this work, slowly came back into my life. And the trauma work was really the key to me understanding how bad it was. I really, when you're in it, you're trying to figure it out, but you may not really be aware of how much trouble you're in, and there were a couple of moments where I had that. It's another one of those aha things of I went to a new doctor and I figured, well, if she's going to be my doctor, she'd better know everything that I've been through. So she sat me down in her office and said, Claire, tell me about your life. Tell me your story. And I was like, okay.
Are you sure you want to listen to this?
Okay. So, and I didn't leave anything out as far as I was able at that time. And so she had a big yellow legal pad. And I remember she was like writing and writing and writing and writing and writing and writing. And then she'd stop and look at me over her glasses and I go, okay. And writing, next page, writing, next page, another deep breath and another, okay. And she kept, and finally I finished and she said, okay, Claire, I got a question for you. Why aren't you dead? I'm sorry, what? And I thought, I don't know. That's a good question. Maybe I should think about that.
Yeah.
Maybe I should think about that. I mean, I was maybe 30 at the time, so I hadn't really started to formulate those kind of questions either, right? So really coming down to it, and then at least a year into my work with the trauma therapist, he finally said to me, he said, Claire, I don't think you understand. People who come from the mental and emotional place that you do don't tend to get better. They end up in an institution, or they end up in prison, or they end up on the street, or they're dead. And I went, oh, I guess that's a thing. Okay. Because I just was so determined that I was going to learn, and there was no internet to look stuff up. There was no, there was the self-help section was like this big. And so, but I just grabbed everything that I could, watch some Oprah because nobody else was talking about this stuff. So I was just working the problem without really understanding that it was a lot. And a lot of folks, if they're talking to me now, don't see that person and don't see the destructive side of unhealed trauma, the destruction it can wreak on yourself and on everybody around you. Unhealed trauma can destroy your everything, your health, your relationships, your marriage, your kids, and then you perpetuate it, so I see some folks who are responding from that place of unhealed stuff. And I really want to tell them, you're going to break things that you care about and then not understand what's happened, because that's the nature of this monster that's living in your head. And we didn't ask for it, that's for sure. It just got imposed on us. But the answers are there for us if and when we can reach for them. And it's a complicated process, very complicated, but it is doable. It is 100% doable. And I insist on the idea that if I did it, it's doable for folks who are ready to grab on and pick up those tools. You got to use the tools,
right.
but pick up those tools and get good support, because you're not stuck with this pain and this rage. It can't have you. You didn't ask for it, but you can certainly learn how to transform it, put it down, and the lessons that come out of it are kind of priceless.
Yeah,
kind of priceless.
A lot of times, I think the lessons is what scares people away, because, we were pretty fortunate, you know what I'm saying? Those lessons gave us the tools, right? And going through trauma, when you're in that moment, like you said, you know what I'm saying? There's nothing else. Your mind and your world is very distorted. Everything is like a blurred line. It crosses over into each other, right? And what a lot of times, like ourselves, when we get into this work, sometimes those lines, they come together and they kind of, oh, that's what that is, right?
Yes.
But the people that we serve, they never see it come together. They just see the crossings. They see how it goes one way and goes back the other way, right? And then it becomes a cyclone of just misinformation, of mistrust. I mean, we talked before, trust issues. I had commitment issues, trust issues, right?
Sure, of course.
But it's asking myself that question. Why am I the way that I am?
Yeah.
Oh, Tony, remember when you were 6 years old and this happened to you? Yeah. Well, that's part of it. We need to work on that. And I a lot of times with the work that we do, the people that we offer our services to, they come to us because we have made sense out of them. Yeah. And these tools and stuff that we have gathered they look like a foreign language tool.
Yeah.
What do you mean? I can do this? Like, yeah, you can. How do you do it? I tell you what, I got some things that I've written down. You know what I'm saying? I've already done some work So you don't have to go through it. But I want to give you these. And I find that the more simplified we make our tools, the better it works for people, because I have the same problem with you. I think a lot faster. So in my mind, I'm not asking people to meet me where I am, but I'm thinking to myself, you have to be at least up here as far as intellect so I can explain it to you effectively, right?
It's very challenging, because we have to meet them where they are. So it takes a minute to, and a few sessions sometimes, to be able to say, okay, I can't use this languaging or this framework because, I've been steeped in psychobabble for 35 years.
Right.
It's literally like, well, handing somebody something written in Greek and going, well, what do you mean you can't read that? Well, of course they can't read it.
Exactly.
So you have to be able to craft your approach depending on who you're talking to.
Right.
And that can be, there's so many factors in that. And, one of the other challenges with so much trauma is we've been blamed and gaslit for decades sometimes of you're not seeing it, you're not feeling it, you're wrong, you're making it up, you're just dramatic, you're exaggerating, blah, 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 blah. And so part of the way that twists us on the inside is it becomes very difficult to recognize when we actually are wrong about something.
Right.
Because it's painful and it's, you become really hardwired to, if I'm being accused of that, then you must be wrong and I can't handle my own role in things.
Right.
Because but it's through the lens. Am I making sense?
You make perfect sense.
It's through the lens of the trauma that teaches us that it is dangerous to be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So then you get in that I'm always right. I have to be always right because it's dangerous to be wrong. But when you get in relationship with other people, when you're grown or after the fact, and all of a sudden, all they see is, why do you always have to be right? And then it comes down to, trying to create an environment where they're able to see this comes from the trauma. This doesn't come from, it doesn't mean you're a terrible person. It doesn't mean that you're a narcissist. That gets flown around a lot these days.
Yeah.
And it means that you've built that protection for yourself. It's one of the layers of protection that you've built for yourself. It was in my house. You could not, I never felt like I could be right about anything. And there are a lot of venues that can take. For a lot of folks, it's, I'm never enough. I'm never good enough. But it also can come can go through the framework of, I can't afford to be wrong. Right. So, but either of those things don't work well when we get out into the world, either at work or in relationships or with your kids, whatever it is, it twists things up. But it comes from the unhealed stuff that's in our wake that has never had the care and attention that it's needed.
That's very true. I find that with myself too. As I was coming up before I got into this work, it wasn't that I had to be right. I was just very defensive. I was very, very defensive. And like we talked about before, it was my way of protecting myself. Sure. I didn't care whether or not if I was right or wrong. You just wasn't going to tell me if I was right or wrong. I was going to argue with you. I was going to have some sort of point, whether it was, whether it was going to have a positive or negative outlet. But what I was looking for is that I was looking for a way to defend myself.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? With everything, it was my way of saying, you know what, you're not going to hurt me. Regardless of what you say, you're not going to hurt me. And if you do, once we cross this boundary, I'm going to try to hurt you first. No matter if it was a relationship, if it was friendships, like I've lost lost so many friends because of that, right? Because I didn't understand my own.
Me
And
too.
when I got to a point to where everything beat me down, like you said, going through that little spiral and everything, I didn't even realize I was in that storm. I have lived it my whole entire life, right? From the time I was a kid to experience grief and trauma and, you know what I'm saying, losing my innocence at a very early age. When I got older, I was like, no one's going to do this to me anymore.
Yeah.
You know, and then I made bad choices and friends, right? The friends that I thought that was going to have my back was the same ones that try to take my life. I'm like, well, I can't trust them. So now it's adding to those things that I had already learned. And then I started getting really good at bringing them in and going, this is my circle right here.
Yeah.
And if you can get to this right here, if you can get to the inner circle, then you're good. But other than that, I'm gonna add a layer, I'm gonna add another layer, I'm gonna add another layer. You're gonna fight me to get to know me. Yeah. So it was like a lone wolf mentality. We walk around this earth, we walk around this world searching for answers. They're right there. But it's all the horrible stuff that we go through that clouds it.
Yes.
And then like most of us that we know that is there, we cannot articulate it to people because if you don't speak the language of grief and trauma, you'll never understand what we've gone through.
Yeah.
And so I had to, and I'm pretty sure you found this out too, but I had to surround myself with people that spoke the same language as me.
Yeah. Yes.
And it was so few and far in between. I was going, okay, what's going on with me? And I had a woman tell me one time, well, this is what you're doing. I'm like, no, that's not what I'm doing. No, you're doing it now. I'm like,
you're doing it right now.
Yeah. And so when it all finally started coming together, and I didn't figure it out till I was in my 40s, right? But it was all those years of loss, trauma, and grief, and all of these different things that was going on that compound. And one day I was like, you know what? If I don't deal with this, the next time I try to take my life, I think I'm going to succeed. Because I was on my second suicide attempt. And I was battling, I was drinking, so alcoholism. I was very promiscuous, so I was sleeping around with any woman that would have me. And, you know, and then I realized that, hey, I got a gift. I can go sleep with it. I'm like, no, that's not, you cannot do that, Tony. You know, and then so it was.
Because that's all about you.
Yeah, it was. Well, at that time, girl, it was.
That's what I'm saying.
It was like, I'm going to go out and drink. I got two options tonight. I'm either going to get into a fight or I'm going to take somebody home or I'm going home with them. Either which way it goes, I think I'm in a good place, right? No, that was a horrible place. And but for me, I guess my heart got in there and said, hey, you cannot keep going around hurting people because you are hurt. No one ever taught me this. And then it dawned on me and I wanted to dive into it. And I went, hurt people. And why? I'm not hurt. The hardest thing I had to do was admit that I was a hurt individual. And once I realized that, I felt bad for myself and I felt bad for all of those women that I hurt. I felt bad for everyone that I hurt when I was gangbanging and things like that. And it dawned on me, you might want to change your ways. Yeah. What you're doing is very unhealthy. And so again, taking that backwards trip into life, right? Understanding where it started and then understanding the escalation from it. And I dove into it and I went, that's not who I am. I was an artist. I was supposed to, ever since I was a kid, I drew all the time. I was always creative, right? Because that was my outlet for life. Right. Being creative was a way for me to escape the reality and build a reality that was customized to me, where I was protected. And if people ever looked at my drawings, they would go, why do all your drawings always have these men that are big and buff? And my excuse was, you know what? Because I always felt that men and women are built like Greeks and we need to have muscles. But honestly, that was my way of saying, I'm a child now, but if I look like this, you couldn't hurt me.
Yeah. And all of that you were building is all about a sense of safety.
Right.
All of it comes from a sense of safety. If you look at even all of the, I always go back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? The what in as we develop mentally and emotionally when we're kids, the first thing you need is a sense of safety in the world. And when that gets broken or never gets built, all of the subsequent steps don't happen.
No.
And we spend our lives trying to find that sense of safety. And a lot of us react, the pathways are so similar. We either turn it outward, we attack, we are defensive. I'm going to get you before you get me, or we turn within, and we take it out on ourselves. And sometimes it becomes an amalgamation of both, right? But none of it is healthy, and then there's that whole looking for love in all the wrong places. And none of it is about love, because we don't have a framework on which to understand what that means.
Right.
And so we're looking for, so many common patterns there, the defensiveness, the promiscuity, all of that is just sort of taking yourself at life instead of growing into it, because it feels unsafe to do that. And, but you had something clicked for you. You had a lightning moment too, where you were like, this is not who I am. I need to do something else, or I'm not going to be here anymore.
Right. And,
and we've talked about that is we both had that, where I'm not supposed to still be here.
Exactly.
And so let's make the most of it, in every possible way. But it can cost you dearly. And it was, you talked about how many friendships you've ruined. I mean, there's a few of those, and those moments where I was making some very, very poor choices in how I behaved with people. And I destroyed a couple friendships that meant a great deal to me, but I didn't understand why. I was just grasping and desperate, and watched it vanish in front of my eyes. And I'll never forget the moment of shaking and almost hysteria on the inside of, I'm losing this thing that means so much to me, but I can't stop it. And there have been some of those that I've been able to, many years later, go back and say, hi, can we talk? I screwed that up. Can we catch up and maybe start now? And, you need to be mad at me. That's cool. You're right. I messed up. And some of those I've been able to go back and fix, and a couple I haven't. But that's how I recognize that pattern. Boy, you break some stuff. And because of that wiring, sometimes you break the stuff that means a great deal to you. And hard lesson.
It is.
Yeah.
I started to accept things once I started looking at life way differently now, right? It started to make sense to me, but in a way to where it confused other people, and I was like, no, you don't understand. Life is real simple for me. Life is real simple. I understand the path that I've walked. It helped me to develop and hone my gift as I got older. I didn't realize this thing was going to be a gift. I thought it was a curse. But I'm like, no, I don't want this.
Right.
I got it. No, I don't want this. I didn't realize what it was giving me. Right. So I fought it. And when it came down to relationships and things like that, I go, okay, I've done these things before. But who's to say it wasn't supposed to happen? I look at them now, they're happy. I'm not going to intervene with that. I'm going to wish them, I'm going to give them a good prayer, and I'm going to wish them well along their journey. So my journey, and the downside to it is, once you get into the habit of doing that, you develop a real strong lone wolf mentality. You don't take things personal anymore. You understand the dynamics that people are just passing through. It's what you give to them. and what they give to you along that journey. You know, everybody is a lesson and a blessing in the same sense, no matter if that lesson was hard or if it was a good one.
Yeah.
Because if it's a hard lesson, you learn what you don't want. If it's a good lesson, you get an idea of which you're starting to need, the necessity of your life from another individual, right?
Yeah.
And even if
right,
that one
right.
doesn't work, you got you one step closer to understanding, okay, why did this not work? I screwed up again. I take responsibility for that, you know, but I've had to go back to people like yourself and go, you know, I just want to say thank you. I never apologized to it. I never apologized. And the reason why I never apologized is because I don't want them to think that I'm sorry for the relationship that we had. I want them to know that look, these things happen. We're going to move past it. But I'm not sorry for the relationship because we still have things to learn. You taught me a great deal of things, and hopefully I can give something back to that, right? And if not, I wish you well. I will see you again. Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
I keep moving, right?
Yeah.
And again, that lone wolf mentality, it's not personal for me. It really isn't. You know, we've all lost so many people that if we start to take these things personal, I feel that we can go into another little hole where we can develop a victim mentality. Yeah. You know, and I'm not a victim. I am not a victim.
You're a survivor.
Right. We survived these things, right? Yeah. So I guess, and you can correct me if I'm wrong or not, but if we carry a victim mentality into another possible relationship or friendship or anything like that, that victim mentality actually is very toxic and can spill over because you're looking to be a victim instead of a victor or a survivor or, you know, someone who's just there to be with you along the journey. We don't appreciate those things because we're constantly, oh, me. No, I'm not that person. I realize that I haven't been that person for a very long time since we've gotten into it. What are your thoughts about that?
Forgiveness is complicated.
It really is. Yes.
Very complicated. Because I think what I want to say about that is, you know, absolutely the victim mentality is destructive. And that's, so I sort of set that aside from those conversations to be able to say, I was in the wrong when you and I interacted before. And here's what was going on in my life. It is not an excuse. I didn't know any better. I own that. Mm-hmm. And whether, you know, it's not my place to ask for forgiveness because it is your decision whether you are willing to make that shift to see that things are different now. But it is, I put it entirely in their court because I very often was badly in the wrong. But it doesn't excuse the damage that I did or the behavior. And it's not so much about being a victim, but I just didn't know any better. I was very immature, very unhealed, and did not understand myself.
Right.
But that does not change the fact that I really hurt you and I hate that. But I got to own that because that was me that did that.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's really to make it as clear as possible that I understand that this was my doing. And then it's not a question of forgiving what I did. It's a question of, can we move to a new place? And, you know, it can leave a lot of, the image in my head is just, you know, broken glass behind us, you know, as you know, it like I said, it breaks stuff. And it's not that can be put back together necessarily. But can we start from a new place? And that's tricky. that's very tricky. And you can't make demands or expectations on people. Sometimes that stuff is very old and goes very deep.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think it is part of our healing process is to understand we were not responsible for the stuff that was dumped on us that we didn't ask for.
Right.
But we are responsible for who we are now and the choices that we make and how we behave. And, you know, if you screw up, gotta own it. Gotta own it. Gotta own it in a way that the folks who screwed us up were not able to.
Right.
So,
and it's breaking those traditions, those traditions that have been handed down to us, right? Because as we always say, hurt people hurt people.
Yes.
So we cannot, I don't fault my mom.
Yeah.
For the butt whippings that I have. I think the majority of my dad earned. There was some that I just think that she made up because she knew I was going to earn them later on in life, right? But in the same sense, I mean, that's like calling a donkey a horse too. You know what I'm saying? Abuse is abuse no matter how you look at it.
Right.
No matter how you look
that's
at
right.
it. Right.
That's
you know
right.
what I'm saying? So I don't shy away from that. It's called abuse. I was physically abused when I was a kid. I was verbally abused when I was a kid, right?
Yeah.
And then I was sexually abused as I was a child too. So I became protective. It's not my mom's fault. It's no one else's fault because that path right there, the understanding that I have now, after going through it, after having to understand it and make sense out of it, you know, I look back on it now and I appreciate it because it makes me better at what I do. It really does make me better at what I do, right? You know what I'm saying? When we're dealing with trauma and grief and things like that, we understand the many layers that actually, you know what I'm saying? Like, what you see it right now is a result from the immediate.
Yeah.
What you see after that is a result from everything else that has been built up. So you have to start to peel back those layers, and then you realize that this is generation deep.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, this is deep. So
absolutely.
As grief workers, we have to have a sense of patience with that individual, and
it's
in
very
a lot of
tricky.
ways.
It's tricky because there's a lot of very words, because I mean, think about it. It's a very blurry line between fault and blame and responsibility. Right. So it doesn't make sense to blame someone for something that they didn't know.
Right.
You know, I always say people only know what they know. My dad didn't know. Your mama didn't know that they didn't know they were being abusive, but they're still responsible for the damage that they did.
Yeah.
Right. So I get, and so a couple of weeks ago, a client said to me, I feel like you're blaming me. And I'm like, hold on. So that's not what I mean. We're all responsible now as adults who are doing the work. We are now responsible for our behavior and for our healing. And so in a way that those who came before us were not able to, right? They were not able to own their responsibility. There was a fight I had with my dad almost right up until he died. He was not able to frame things in a way that was healthy for me. He only could frame things in a way that was healthy for him.
Right.
And that equation, after quite a long time, I came to understand was not good for me. And so I didn't heal things with my mother because that was before all the work happened, and then she was gone and that was too late. And there's literally hundreds of questions for her that I'll just never have the answer to. Right. For my dad, it was, this is not going to get healed because I was not able to teach him that language.
Right.
And so, and that it is what it is. But those three things get tangled up a lot: blame and fault and responsibility,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's still, I understand the impetus to say, in some sense, it's not my dad's fault. He taught what he knew, and that's the family dynamic that he came from.
Mm-hmm.
So he could not learn anything new. And so he was in that, he stuck in that until he died. That's just how he was. But so lesson in that too, don't stay stuck. It's not working.
Yeah.
It's not working. You look around when somebody says, well, nobody in my family speaks to me. And so they're all mad at me and they all hate me and I'm the family pariah. Maybe that's, on the one hand, that could be because you just don't fit in your family and you're the one who is different.
Mm.
It could be that there are some behavior things in your past that have just pissed everybody off.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Or it could be a combination of those things. But you got to get curious about what's under there. What's under there? Because everybody's story is a little bit different, right? So there are definitely patterns, and there are definitely things that are less than healthy, less than optimal. But getting curious about yourself in a way that doesn't, then turn the 2x4 on yourself and start beating yourself up. Mm-hmm. Once you see, it's very common, once you see the damage that you've done, to start, oh my God, how could I do that? I'm a terrible person. I'm a terrible mother. I'm a terrible spouse, et cetera. Like, no. You're responding based on how you were wired. But let's change the wiring. Let's rewire it into a healthier framework, because all of this stuff is flexible. That's the good news from all of this, Tony. And that's what our journeys are, which is why I put the pathway behind me, the journey.
I saw that, yeah.
We got shaped a certain kind of way, but we're not that way anymore. So, and there's niggly bits back there. There's residual stuff that pops up, right? Once in a while where you're like, oh, I recognize that. I think I still got to look at that, right?
Yes.
The old things that pop up and you're like, oh, you again? Oh, all right. I got to deal with you.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, luckily now I know how to do that.
Exactly. Yes. And that's what it does. That's what this life does. It teaches us how to deal with it, right? I think life is funny that way. I really do. And now I enjoy it, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But when you're going through the mix, you don't really enjoy it too much. It'll beat you down so bad and everything. And, now, just like you said, I was one of those ones that had to turn around and go, okay, no more. You know what I'm saying? No more. And again, it began with that question: why am I the way I am?
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that I had a problem.
Yeah.
So and I was going, okay, I can't keep doing this. This is unhealthy. I can't keep going around sleeping with women. This is unhealthy. Eventually I'm gonna get something that I'm not gonna be able to get rid of. I got to stop drinking, because this is where most of my bad decisions are coming from. Because when I drink, I don't care. I have to change the people that I'm around, because I realize that, their personality influences mine, but there's a conflict of interest because I don't think the way that they do.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? So I have to get rid of that. Okay, what do I need to, what are the next steps? Well, I need to fill myself with people that can feed whatever's inside of me to help me manifest this.
That's right.
And I never even knew what that meant. It just made sense to me, right? It wasn't until later on, till I looked back and I went, that's what it was trying to teach me, the whole thing. So all these lessons that I learned, it didn't come out of a book. It was already there. So I realized the path that I'm on. Okay, I need to stay on this path right here. Why? Because it makes sense to me. It speaks a language to me. And what can I do with this? Oh my God. So now I'm like a kid in the candy store. I'm like, wow, all of this information, what is going on? I feel so much good. Who do I give this to? And life said, you need to slow down. We understand that you're excited right now, but I got to tell everybody, right? I got to tell everybody what I found out. And life said, you may not want to do that, Tony. And I'm
Not
like,
yet.
well, why not? Because you don't quite understand it just yet. So
That's
don't
right.
jump the gun.
Right.
Let's go through the process. And I went, the process? I don't need a process, right? And life says, no, you don't understand. You've been in the process for like the last 40 some years.
Right.
And you just never really understood what it was. And
Yeah.
I went, what do you mean? I don't like that. If we're in the process, give me something so I can give away, right? And so that's where it all began. It was like, no, I want to give it away. But like, no, you have to understand how to speak first. Like, no, you don't understand. I speak really good English. They were like, yeah, you don't speak good English, Tony, right? And I'm like, but you don't understand. I know my ABCs. I know how to pronounce words and this, that, and another. They were like, no, you still don't understand how to speak. What do you mean? Do I need to write it down and then rehearse it or something? You know? It's
a process.
That's where it came from, right?
Yeah.
It was like you said, turning that 2x4 around and started beating yourself with it, right? But it was a fight to get it away from the person who was hitting it. He hit me with it the first time, right? And I went,
right, but now that person is you.
Yeah, there you go. It was
now that person is you. You take over from your abuser.
Well, when I realized that I was my own abuser, I was my own abuser. Not in the physical sense, but the emotional aspect of it, right?
Oh, you can't pull those things apart.
Yeah,
the emotional is physical, because if you're drinking and you're sleeping around, that's physical. Both of those are physical, but they're emotional choices that come from an unhealed place.
Yeah, I just never understood it, right? I just thought, of course. I just thought women liked me. That's all.
Nothing wrong with that, but
I mean, it's nothing wrong with it, but it's unhealthy. It's unhealthy in a way, especially if
the underpinnings of it were not coming from a healed place. And then you had what I call, you had a PhD in the 2x4.
Yes. Yes.
boom, 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 boom. Yeah. Right.
But then I realized I was hard headed, so I had to trade in the 2x4 for a 4x4.
Oh boy.
Oh yeah, and that was the hard part, because I think that one came when I finally turned that one around to the 4x4. It was after my son passed away.
Yeah.
And I mean, I got two girls before, and no fault of theirs. I just wasn't the father that they needed. And it was better for them to stay away from me because of the life that I was living. And I learned a valuable lesson, because with my youngest daughter, I was actually shot. I was shot 22 times and had her taken away from me. Right? Yeah. As I was taking her to the daycare, they shot me. They're survival gangbanger. So, you know what I'm saying? Living that lifestyle, trying to get out of it, but never moving out of the place that you causing the most damage. It's eventually going to come back around, right? But rules of the land back then, I thought I would get a pass. I got my little girl. She's not even 2 years old. I'm taking her to the daycare. But life said, hey, you remember that thing that you did a couple years back to those guys? Like, if you look over to your left right now, they're about to drive right past you. Karma is going to come back and get you. Yeah. And the only thing that I can think at that time was, I need to get my daughter to the daycare. Yeah. By the time I realized what was going on, I was covered in blood. The place had lit up, and it would seem like forever was only a few seconds. Yeah. And I just remember getting up, praying that my daughter was okay. Once I realized that she was okay, I got her to the daycare. My words to them were, call Child Protective Services. Have them come pick her up. Yeah. Please. And they said, what are you going to do? I said, well, I'm going to go home. I'm going to take a shower. And my exact words to them were, when I get out the shower, I'm going back and I'm going to kill every last one of them. I ended up in a hospital. Mentality. I
was going to say, but you were shot.
I was shot 22 times. So I took a shower.
Go home and take a shower.
And I still went home, took a shower. I went home, took a shower, changed my clothes, sat down on my couch, called up my friends, but the people that I was running with at the time, they had already heard what was going on. They say, what are you going to do? I said, I got a duffel bag full of guns. I'm going to kill everybody. I'll see you guys when you get here.
Lordy.
They got there. I had passed out on the couch, woke up in the hospital, and I was so mad. I was so mad. I was like, no one woke me up. They were like, you're dying, Tony. I was like, no, you don't understand. We got to go get them, right? But it was the mentality that I had. Again, karma came back and taught me a valuable lesson. You can't go around doing this, Tony, and then expect good things to happen to you. You know, like you're going to have to pay for these things. And luckily, my daughter didn't have to pay. So lesson well learned. The kids should not be around me. So again, going back to that lone wolf mentality, right?
Yeah.
Fast forward some years later, my son is born, right? Happiest day of my life, because now I'm done with all of this. And life came back and said, yeah, you don't get to keep this one either.
Oh.
You know, and when life took him, I could have had the option of going back to the streets. I could have easily, my mindset could have flipped over and went, you know what? I'm done with this world. I'm done with this world. Right? You know what I'm saying? You can't keep taking things away from me and expect me to give things back. So again, I'm developing that victim mentality again, right? Because it's hurtful. And then when my mother passed away, and I went, you know what? Screw the world. I'm done with you. You guys can have it. I'm out of the running. I don't want to play no more.
Yeah.
And again, that mentality got me to where I am now, but it took me almost taking my life for the second time to come back and go.
So what was it that made that flipped that switch in your head from you got to, you know, the world has stopped doing me wrong to I have to fix my life?
What flipped for me was the mentality of I am not going to give up yet.
Okay.
I've been a fighter my whole entire life.
Ditto.
You know? And so I did want to give up, but then there was a side of me that was going, you know what? No, you're not going to, we're going to have to fight again in order for you to survive. And there was a side of me that was saying, no, I don't want to survive anymore. I'm tired of surviving. I want to live. I'm tired of hurting. I'm tired of crying. I'm tired of being alone. And then there was the side of me that was going, hey, stop playing the victim. No one did this to you. This is what life is. Yeah. We're going to get through this. And I went, I can end it right now. I can do this right now. And it was like a boxer in a ring. Right. So you want to see
but you're boxing with yourself.
Yeah, I'm boxing with myself, right? And so here I am. I'm facing the worst half of me, the worst part of me that is sitting up there going like this. We can give up. And if you want to, I'll put them down. You know what I'm saying? I'll put them down and we'll go peacefully. Here's something for you. And then there was a side of me that was beat up on the ropes, bloody and everything else, ready to give up. And I just, ready to climb out the ring and throw the white flag in just so it can be done and over with. Yeah. Right. And something as I was saying it is like as I've been knocked outside of the ring, and this is the best way I can explain it. And I'll try to do a lot better. But on the outside of the ring, I can just remember looking in my corner and saying, Coach, I'm done. I'm tired of being hit like this, man. I'm tired, Yeah. But
what you did, the shift you made was that you realized it was your decision.
Right.
Your choices that, you're staying in the gang life. You're staying with that same mentality. The same stuff's going to happen.
Right. Yeah.
And you shifted out of that to changing your choices.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. And that's the powerful piece. It's in your hands more than you think it is. Because I've tried to talk to folks who are stuck in that loop. Mm-hmm. And the mentality is, well, why should I do this and such? I've had all these terrible things happen to me, and this person betrayed me, and this person, attacked me, and and it's and all that is true. But they want more revenge, more than they want to get on their own feet. And they're not willing to put that. It's a hard conversation, right? From the outside, because the shift has to happen on the inside.
Right. And you're absolutely right, And sometimes you got to realize that the towel that you're throwing in the ring it's not the towel to retreat. It's the towel to wipe your head off and throw it back outside of the ring and get ready for your next round.
Yeah.
You know, because the more and more you fight that, the more and more you fight it, the more and more it's going to give you. The more and more, if you crack it open enough times, you know what I'm saying, it starts to leak out information for you, right? Then you realize that, again, like you said, you're in that ring with yourself. How hard are you going to fight yourself?
It is very, very tough. I mean, it is very tough to get through all of that. If that's all you've ever known, if you're coming from violence, if you're coming from street life, you're coming from drug life, sometimes you're coming from a prison stint, sometimes you're coming from being shot, sometimes you're coming from all of the above, right? And then trying to find a foothold in the world, but still using the old template, and then not understanding, you know, it's like, it's, if you know, what's that definition of insanity, right? You're doing the same thing. It's like the same. If I'm gonna go back to the kitchen, you and I talk about the kitchen a lot. If you make the recipe the same way, with the same ingredients, follow the same steps, you can't be shocked when it turns out the same way it did last week.
Exactly.
You know, if you're making lasagna, and then you can't be confused about why it's not, you know, a burger. These are two different things. It's not a salad.
Right.
You've used the same ingredients. You've used the same steps. So have you noticed or have you tried maybe changing your steps and your ingredients and see if something else will happen? And a lot people will fight you so hard on that. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to see it. Yeah, but this person did me wrong and I got to get, you know, back at this person, and, you know, or they fight, well, okay, but I'll just sell this one stash and then I'll start over. Or I'll just trust this person one more time. Oh, dang it. I got pinched again. Oh, well, that's 3 strikes. Well, now what? You know, and I popped out a kid. Well, too bad. You know, and it's a cycle. That's very, very hard to break. So you are blessed and lucky, my friend.
No, you know what? I look at it as it's part of what makes me who I am. It's not personal. It's not personal. See, back then I took it personal, right? But now,
but it's also very personal.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't personal.
We're using the word differently.
Yeah. We're just using it different. So, you know what I'm saying? And we both know when we talk about personal, it can go either which way. But if I look at it this way, like, it wasn't personal, the things that happened to me. They were the lessons that I needed to learn in order to do what I'm doing now. Because had I not experienced it, I would not be able to talk to it. I would not be able to help the next person. So yes, I had to go through it as a personal experience.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? In order to extract the knowledge in order to better my gift. See, what I didn't understand, that everything that I was going through was feeding my gift. Yeah. It was feeding it in a way to where I didn't understand. And I didn't know what to do with it. So of course I projected it out in a very negative way until it came back and said, it doesn't have to be this way.
Right.
Here's what I'm going to give you. I'm going to give you some knowledge in order to help you. Do not take this life personal. It is not personal. These things happen all the time. Just unfortunately, it had to happen to you. It's not personal. You know what I'm saying? But you can learn from it. It doesn't have to be a negative thing, because if you could take the knowledge and intellect and be able to give out to someone else, for me, that is the best thing that I can ever give to someone. I went through this so you don't have to figure it out. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And I'm not selfish. I'm not selfish in that, right? You know what I'm saying? Because I'm like, okay, if I run across somebody who's gone through something similar that I have, and I can pinpoint that exact moment in my life where it turned around and made sense, I can talk to that person on the level to where not only will he understand, but he or she will look forward to the next conversation, because I'm giving them something that they don't have to figure it out, but everything makes sense. So my life has not been personal. I'm only passing through this life. It's what I leave behind.
Right.
It's what I leave behind. Through all of that, can I leave someone better
than you found them?
Than when I found them? And the question is yes. And if I can take the opportunity each and every last time to help someone else step outside of their darkness, to let them know that, you know what I'm saying, there are people out here who actually give a damn about you, then I'm okay. I am okay. This life is not personal to me anymore. You know what I'm saying? I can sit back and I can laugh and I can just go, okay, that's not a problem. I appreciate that.
It's, and when I say it's personal, in that it's, I mean it differently, in that it changed the path of your journey, right? And I often talk about the fact that I don't know who I would be if my mother hadn't died, because that broke me into a lot of pieces and made me work really hard at putting myself together.
Exactly.
And one of the great ironies is that, you know, my mom had a very rough second half of her life. And ironically, I now have skills and tools that I would have been able to offer her, but I wouldn't have built those if I hadn't lost her, probably. So I do not know who I am or where I would be if that hadn't happened. So it's a complicated journey, right?
Complicated and yet simple in the same sense, right? Like, think about it. The conversations that we have.
Yeah, I just sometimes that when you say it's simple, sometimes if people are sensing layers of complexity, that can invalidate that. So the answers can be, you know, simpler than we think, but understanding how this stuff gets built, you know, people see different levels of complexity in different ways, different layers, different colors of emotion. So it can be very complicated. I always want to be aware of not invalidating each person's process, because for some people it may be, I find it, because I tend to see layers of complexity. This is part of what I do, is explain people to themselves, because they don't know why they do or how to interpret, how to feel, how to change. So, well, actually what I see is this, and this. And to watch that light bulb go off and go,
right.
Oh, that makes so much more sense. And being able to frame that in a way that they can see it and appreciate it and really have, because now what we can do is create those aha moments for others, right?
Yeah.
And create those healing paths that we didn't have. We had to create our own because it didn't exist.
Exactly.
It didn't exist. So that's a huge part of why I focus so much on the tweet is demystifying and destigmatizing.
Right.
Because there's all of these layers of stuff that folks have to get past in order to even ask for help.
Yes.
To even understand what good help looks like. There are so many pieces that have to be rejiggered and re-understood. I wanted to, and at some point, maybe I will, or maybe it'll be my next book. I don't know. Everything you think you know about grief and trauma is a lie.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Because it's just the layers of things that people don't know blows my mind sometimes, and the suffering that causes, the years and years that people go without help, or really honestly thinking that they are crazy.
Yeah.
And I don't use that word. You have you are filled with sorrow and rage and brokenness on a lot of levels, but that doesn't make you crazy. that makes you hurt.
Yes.
And not knowing what to do with that can make you feel crazy, but you're not crazy. You're not crazy.
It definitely feels that way. Definitely. It used to feel that way. I used to think I was going crazy because I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what this thing was. Right.
Sure.
And and I can go back to where, gang lifestyle, where I've lost the majority of my friends. So actually, I've just lost my last one. So I'm the last of the Mohicans, right? But
wow.
You're
a true survivor.
It happens. We live this life, and none of us is going to get out of here alive. We're just not going to get out of here alive, right? So that's the reality that I look at. But it was after when my son, I think when my son passed away, that started the transition into wanting to understand, but I had to go through it, right? I never really allowed myself to go through it when I lost all the other my friends, when I lost my grandmothers and my father and my brother and all. I didn't allow myself to go through it. I just looked at it. This is totally normal. I'm going to keep moving. Then there was something that was going, you might want to go back and deal with that. I'm like, no, I don't want to deal with that. My son hit, it was like, I remember when I was sitting there and I was watching him, after he had passed away. And the only thing I can think of was that going back to that mentality, I am going to break this doctor's neck.
Yeah.
And there is no one in here that can stop me. I'm about to Hulk smash this whole floor. I am about to throw stuff out the window. You don't understand. And I don't know what stopped me. That was the whole thing. I don't know what stopped me because I was thinking to myself, like, this just did not happen. Like, life just did not do this. Like, that was my baby. He was the first one that I actually manned up and was going to be a father so I can teach him to go out and search for his sisters to be the brother that he can be and let them be the family because I've already screwed up my half. I can't change that. But now you take the only thing that I have that's keeping me sane, and it could have went back so easily. I could have easily went back, but then I was like, I'm in a different place in life because for like the last 8 years, I've been trying to figure out how to be a better man.
Yeah.
And now I'm figuring out how to be a father.
Yeah.
And I'm learning all of these things that I never learned before. And this life just takes it away from me. And I went, you know what? You can only beat up on me for so long. And I'm tired of fighting. And I think for those 2 years, and then my mother passed away, I just went like this. And I just remember telling God, I said, you remember that promise that I told you? And I can just remember him saying, yeah. I said, I'm about to come up there and see you. We're going to have to talk.
Yeah.
Because I'm not okay with the life that you did. You just taken everyone away from me. Everyone. And now what you want me to do, no. See, we're not going to do this. And I remember I was like, I'm coming up there to come see you. And that night, well, actually 2.5 months later, because I had to plan out my suicide because everyone gets upset when you go, hey, I'm going to go over here and shoot myself. Are you okay with that? People don't like hearing that, right? You know what I'm saying? They're like, no, Tony, you can't go do that. So I had to manipulate people. I had to move people around, and I planned it out, right? And I had my open window for that weekend. I had my whole weekend planned out, and that weekend was when I was going to do it. I shouldn't have never came back. I shouldn't have never came back outside of the desert, right? My body should have been there. I was ready, but it did teach me that I'm not afraid to do it. The thought of death it doesn't faze me anymore. I get it.
Yeah.
We all live, we all die. It's the natural order of things. As long as we live, we're going to die. We can either accept it or we can fight it, right? So I choose to accept it. That's why it's not personal to me anymore. I realize that people have been losing kids and family members since the beginning of time. We're not immune to it. You know what I'm saying? Just because it happened to me doesn't make it a big deal.
And yet it is still okay to grieve them.
Yeah. Oh, of course. I will grieve. I will grieve. But I have no problems I have no shame in saying I will grieve my family till the day I die. I will. But I'm just not going to take the deaths personal anymore.
It's that shift between you can feel those things,
right.
and you should feel those things when they come up, but you don't have to live there.
Right.
You don't have to live in that pit of sorrow for the rest of your life.
Right.
There's you got work to do, man.
There's always a lot of work to do. There's always a lot of work to do.
I mean, in the world.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
That's what we're here for, right?
Yeah.
That's what we're here for. This thing that developed over time through our mishaps, our mistreatment in life, has been this beautiful gift to give out to other people. Like it's not ours to keep. I'm a firm believer that we're all born with something, however it comes out. Like your mother was into music, you know what I'm saying? And you got into psych work. And there's also many people that are doing so many great things in this life that if we do not manifest this gift into the world, we're doing ourselves and others of disservice. Right? We're not holding true to our end of the bargain. We make the sacrifice so others don't have to. And if they do have to go through it, we made the sacrifice so we can help them get through it. Right?
And it's also a privilege.
No, it's humbling.
Yeah, it's about holding space for someone else on their journey. And I kind of view that work as sacred. I mean, by the time someone gets to my door, I rarely get someone at the beginning.
Right.
There's one category of folks is they've had a lot of losses and trauma earlier in their lives that haven't been dealt with. And then one happens that pushes them over the edge and all of it comes tumbling out. And so that's one definition. But it's also folks who sometimes have asked for help, have been to doctors, been to therapists, told their family members or told the legal system and were not believed or dismissed, rejected, attacked for trying to get help. Right. And all people want to do is be heard. Right. It is such a powerful thing to sit in sacred space with someone and go, I hear you. You are not crazy. You are not broken forever. You've been through some terrible things and I hear you, but I want to tell you, this is not the end of your story. This is a chapter and it was horrible. And I am so sorry these things happened to you. Let's make a new chapter. Let's figure out how to move into the next phase of your life, because this is not the end. It can feel like it when that's all that you've known, but we are proof that you can create something else. You can create something new and give yourself some peace.
Right.
And it takes some work, and that's okay. And some of it is rough and some of it can be scary, and that's all right. I tell people, you got some rough stuff, that's okay. Nothing scares me. Bring it. Talk to me. I don't care how ugly. I don't care how terrible. You bring it and we will walk that path together, because nobody gets down that by themselves. I didn't. Right. And, so now paying it forward is the absolute least I can do. Because this is not, I just wake up one morning and, I think I'll deal with my rape today. Yeah. I think I'll deal with my, all of the ugly in my past. I call my history the dark ugly.
I like that.
Yeah. I came up with that when I was writing my book, which is sort of the beginning stories of my life. But how to cope with that first week after a loss, because I never found a book that did that.
No,
And that
no.
immediate, when that phone call happened about my mother, what do I do? What do I do? I can't think straight. I'm in shock. I actually was physically in shock. I could not feel my arms and legs. And it wasn't until later I realized I probably should have been in the ER, but I wasn't. And, that those beginning days of what the hell just happened, and oh my God, is there a will? And the funeral and family and a million phone calls and details of how do you manage all of that? It's here. I want you to make a million really important decisions now.
Yeah.
When you can't hold a thought in your head,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
kind of, it's very lumpy. And
Yes.
so I went looking for something like that and I couldn't find it. Well, I said, I better write it because I learned a lot from that, certainly from that first experience. I've had quite a few other ones since then. But how to just navigate that first, I know I call it a week, but sometimes it's more than that, but it's those beginning stages. And, just trying to fill those gaps of what are the things that people don't know? What are the things that you can't find in the lexicon? So, yeah, but there are answers to all of that. And, who do you talk to? How do you deal with those things that people who mean well, then they say, and this happens with every, whether it's a loss or a trauma or whatever, when people say something that they think is supposed to make you feel better and it actually makes it worse.
Right. Yes.
I'm sure you had those too.
Oh yeah. Well, I just did something. I just put up a couple posts not too long ago about talk about patience. So it kind of goes right into that, right? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And then I like people can call it whatever they want. I just simplified it in something that made sense to me. You have your outward patience, where you have to develop that patience with people, because even though people we mean well. We really do. So that's why it's not personal. But it can't be taken personal within those first couple of weeks after something happening. You're very sensitive to these things. So something like, hey, how you doing today? The first instinct is to say, did you not see what just happened to me a couple of days ago? And you asked me what's wrong with me? You know what I'm saying? Do you not get it?
Yeah.
You just said it right there. You don't get it.
Yeah.
They're people, and don't take it personal, because people are only doing what they know, and they're expressing concern over you in their own entire way. So no, it's not personal, and no, they don't understand.
No, they don't. And yet it can be very hurtful.
It can be very hurtful depending on the individual who's receiving it.
Yeah. And so in those times, we're very heightened.
Right.
We're very heightened. We're hypersensitive. We're hyper aware. Those once in a lifetime things that happen around a death or a traumatic event, we're heightened. We're on alert. And if you come from trauma already, that's cranked up even higher.
Right.
So some offhand thing that somebody just throws out there that's supposed to make you feel better, where you go, I'm sorry, what? Did you? The one I talk about in the book is at my mother's funeral. I had a cousin of mine say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, honey. Well, just think of the good times." There really weren't any. Thanks.
Yeah.
So that's one of those things that you just sort of spit out. One of those platitudes. I am anti-platitude. Because they can be so incredibly hurtful. And there's a whole list of those. And so here's what not to say. But I always take the position of helping the griever through those times when someone is dealing with the funeral, or the first few weeks or first few months after, and all of those people honestly, they don't know what to say. They want to help, but they don't know what to say. And how do you teach the griever to navigate that?
Right.
Probably biting somebody's head off may not be the best idea, but I understand the impetus.
It all depends on how you look at it. It all depends on how you look at it, okay?
So when someone says something that is rude, to just say, you know what, that actually doesn't help. That really doesn't help. And that's kind of hurtful. Here's what, and your mileage may vary. Everybody can handle this a little bit differently, but actually what I need is this. And sometimes people don't know what they need, right? They just know it's not that. Right. Don't say that, so you got to ask, so what would help? What would help in those equations? What would be less painful to say to someone when you mean well, but you don't know what to say?
That's very true.
And we don't navigate a lot of those communications well at all. So it's legit that people don't know what to say or how to help, but it's also legit that they can.
It's not that they don't know; they only see it from their perspective. So it's a one-sided perspective.
I think they honestly don't know. I think a lot of people honestly don't know. They only know the platitudes that the culture will spit out.
Okay, so that makes sense to me as well. So just to add to it, a lot of the comments that people make when you're grieving is one-sided because if a person don't understand what you've gone through, they have no concept of what that side looks like, right? Yeah. So human nature says to comfort and to nurture, right? You know what I'm saying? You have to come from a place where you understand. So most of the things that are being said is one-sided. And so, but they mean no harm. They mean no harm because, like you said, they don't know. They only know from their limited view of that window that you have. So it's not personal. It's definitely not personal. And so when I tell people you got to have patience with these individuals because you're right. You know what I'm saying? They don't know. Or they only seeing it from this aspect. So don't take it personal. They're doing the best that they can with what they have to work with. You know what I'm saying? Appreciate that. Have gratitude for that because at least they are recognizing what you're going through just from a different understanding.
Sometimes they don't. I mean, these topics make people very uncomfortable. They want to just throw something out there okay, I said the thing and I got to go now. Bye. And they just scurry away. But those platitudes can be very hurtful. Yes. Right. Yes. So it's a balance. It's both. Obviously they don't know. So they just say the culturally accepted thing. Right. And then they can go back home in their lives and pat themselves on the back that they said something. Mm-hmm. While the griever is left with their mouth hanging open. And some, that can, it's one thing to say something that just doesn't help. It's another thing to say something that is incredibly inappropriate. And then the griever's left standing there with their jaw on the floor going, did you just say that to me? Mm-hmm. What?
Uh-huh. Now take everything that you just said and factor it in. You're at a sensitive, heightened level.
Right.
So no matter what a person says to you at that individual time, the possibility of the griever taking it personally is just multiplied.
Right. And so when I try to teach people how do you speak to a griever, is very, very gentle, is very, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry this happened. And try to come from a position of empathy and gentleness, mm-hmm. And everybody's going to react differently. And you don't know what they need and they don't know what they need. What they need is for this to have not happened.
Right.
And you can't do that for them. You can't undo it. That loss has happened. Mm. And be as present as possible without imposing. Mm-hmm. Right. Because being in that fog of numbness after a loss is very, disorienting.
Right.
I always describe it as you're feeling every emotion on earth, and yet you're completely numb at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So you're, as you said, heightened, but also kind of flat,
oblivious. Yeah.
at the same time. And that's why people think they're crazy, because they don't understand that these things coexist in the exact same moment. And that doesn't mean you're crazy. It means that you're grief stricken. It means that you're in shock, and that numbness will wear off. And then there's a whole other thing that happens after that.
It's never ending.
Yeah.
It's definitely never ending, because once you start peeling back those layers, you realize, holy crap. You mean to tell me that was sitting there too? Like, yeah, that was sitting there. What do I do with it? Let's deal with it. Let's deal with it. Once we get done dealing with that, we'll take off all the other invisible proverbial layers that don't really mean anything, things that you've concocted in order to protect this. So others don't know. So let's get these out the way. Then we dive into that. Once we start to develop those tools, then we're going to move that out the way. We're going to get to the root cause of what's actually going on with you. And it's a slow, steady process, right? But it's a process nonetheless. And some people get discouraged along the way. Well, I'm not getting this, I'm not getting that. I'm like, well, honestly,
patience.
You have to have patience with yourself. If you try to jump all into this all at one time, the possibilities of you jumping back out of there and going, I'm not going to do that. Well, that goes up through the ceiling too, because then you realize that you have to face the life that you've lived.
The pacing is really important. The pacing is really important. And people do get, they want to go too fast or they want to go too slow.
Yep.
And you have to be able to help them modulate so that they can take in the new information and have it really sink in, and really take a new tool and have it work its way through them. Yeah. And it's not an easy fix, and that's okay. It shouldn't be, because big life changes, these things didn't get stuck in us in a few weeks or a few months. But luckily, if you assert yourself at the problem and you really become committed to the healing process, it will not, if it took us, 20 years to get a certain kind of way, it's not going to take you 20 years to get to the other side of it. And the point is that it's not really an end of the process, because there's always new stuff that happens in life, but to give folks the tools so that when the next thing happens, they don't feel completely lost.
Yes.
So now they have an internal toolbox for the slings and arrows that life is going to throw at them, because it will. But wait, there's more.
Oh yeah. I love the way you did it. Wait, there's more. I'm like, oh man. Totally agree. So let's talk about your book a little bit.
Oh, yes. So I have to find the right spot to. There we go.
There it is. Putting out the
fire.
There
it is. This way.
Mind, body, and spirit in the first weeks of Lost and Beyond. I can't wait to read that book. I just ordered it off of Amazon. So.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yes, of course.
I wish you'd order it. I always tell people to order it from me. That way I can sign it to you or send it out personal like.
Well, you know what? When we meet in person, you'll be able to sign all of those. Because I got a whole bunch of books coming. So all of us are going to be signing books all over. There you go. It's a book signing.
That would be lovely. That was it. Well, yeah. And so I tell folks, go to my website, which is youcanhealyourgrief.com. That's where all of my grief and trauma stuff is. My book is there, and you can buy directly from me personally, because Amazon don't need my money.
I understand. Now I get what you were saying. I was like, I thought everything was on Amazon.
Yeah.
I did. We got a whole list of books, and we just go to Amazon like we got to order this one.
He doesn't need any more money.
He don't need no more money. Jeff Bezos, that's true.
Yeah. No, he'll be just fine. But so the book is there. I also have a blog that has lots of free information, mostly about grief. More stuff about trauma is forthcoming. And the book I wrote, like I said, as a response to that first week of not knowing what to do. So it weaves my story through the various pieces that come up at the beginning of the grieving process. And it talks about how to take care of yourself, because self-care has to come first. Mm-hmm. That's what I threw out the window during that nervous breakdown period. And how to take care of the business angle of things. There's a lot of legal mumbo jumbo that happens after a loss.
Yes.
A whole chapter on the behavior of others that has to deal with some of the stuff that we just talked about, but there are also some very toxic people that will try to stick your finger in your grief process and make things that much harder. How to deal with that? Who do you want around you, and who you don't? Who you can kind of do without?
Yes.
And then the concept of time and how that gets very wonky when you're dealing with a loss. Mm-hmm. It gets very stretchy, where it feels like something just happened last week, and yet it feels like it's just so long ago you can barely put your finger on it. COVID has done that to the whole world.
Yes.
I keep saying last year, and it's actually 2 years. Yes. So 2020 and 2021 have sort of merged in my brain, which I'm still confused about how that happened. But
don't feel bad.
Yeah,
don't feel bad at all.
Definitely weird. But yeah, that's another one of those things that makes people think that they're crazy. Is, did that just happen? What do you mean it's only been 3 weeks? Or what do you mean that's only been 3 years? So your sense of time gets really wonky.
Yes.
And then the longer term of healing, and how to celebrate the person who has passed, and how to celebrate yourself in the process, how to take care of yourself.
Yes.
And just as a caveat, a big bunch, just to focus on the grief and loss aspect for a moment, a big chunk of the grief and loss ethos, if you will, really deals with what happens when you lose someone who was very dear to you.
Right.
How are you going to live without them?
Right.
And it doesn't deal with that whole other category of what do you do when it's someone that you've been estranged from? What do you do when your abuser dies? What do you do when, you see what I'm saying? It's because people leave what I call a lumpy legacy, where we have this thing after someone passes where you don't speak ill of them, you don't say anything bad. I'm like, well, but I don't know any saints personally.
Yeah, no, me neither.
So it often the wake that people leave is very lumpy, for lack of a better words, technical term, lumpy.
No, totally understand.
But yeah, but there's a dearth of information about that. Most books are, how do I deal with the loss of someone who was very dear to me? How do I deal with the loss of a child? How do I deal with my beloved spouse of 40 years? How do I deal with, the loss of a parent who was, the light of my life? Well, okay, fine. But that leaves out a whole lot of people.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Yeah.
The great thing about now, what I've started to notice since I've started this work, we're starting to cover those gaps.
I hope so.
There's so many people that are starting to come into their own when we start to talk about grief support, right? And there's people that are better in these areas, like loss of a job. You know what I'm saying? Like, we all grieve that too. Or loss of a business, loss of a car, loss of all of these things. And so good thing about doing this work is that we're able to connect with these individuals, right? And that's the reason why what we're doing now, having a group and doing the conference, is bringing us from across the world, everyone who has these beautiful niches in grief and trauma, and putting it out there on the front street so people can know that we're there to increase our involvement in our communities, to help our communities get better and start healing from these different areas, right, of trauma and grief and things like that. So yes, a few years ago, you know what I'm saying, like 20, 30 years ago, it was uncommon. But we live in an era now to where we are starting to step up. We're starting to manifest our gifts into this world. We're starting to do the things that we said that we were going to do. And that is our goal, is to connect us and be able to do it on a level to where we can have that impact, right? Because, you know, when you're trying to do it on your own, you kind of stay in your own lane. And it's okay to stay in your own lane because that's what you understand, right? You know what I'm saying? But what happens when someone comes in and they're not, you know what I'm saying, they're not part of that lane that you're in? My biggest pet peeve is turning someone away because of something that I don't understand and I don't have the connections to give to them. That hurts me. That truly hurts me. Now, you know what I'm saying? I have people like yourself that I've known, and Jenny, and all, you know, all these other wonderful people that are doing this work. I haven't had to turn anyone away.
You got to be able to point someone in the right direction.
Right, point them in the right direction, right?
Specialized.
So it's one of those things, one of those uncommon things we're making normal. We're making common now, and we're putting ourselves out there on the front street because we have to repair the damage that have been done by these larger organizations. See, they started making money and they forgot about us.
Don't get me started.
Oh, girl, look, I can go on forever about that. That's one of the main reasons why I started the nonprofit, was because I got tired of that. I went, you guys have to do better. They go, oh, but we are. And so I'm in meetings with congressmen and all of these things, and they talk about getting $150 million to build a facility that's in the middle of nowhere. And I look at them and I go, so who are you trying to serve? Y'all go build a building out here in the middle of nowhere. Who are you really trying to serve? Oh, it's going to be for over here. Whoa. Oh, let me just get this right. So you're going to put a building way out here in the middle of nowhere, no bus access, but you are closer to the suburban. Oh, I get it. Oh, you're not trying to service the communities that can actually benefit from you. You're trying to service the communities that can afford your services, but you are a nonprofit dedicated to serving the communities who, so you got it mixed up. You're what's making us look bad. So I tell you what, you go ahead and do that. You make your millions of dollars and things like that. More power to you. I'm going to stay committed and stay on the front lines because the people in the communities that I walk around in needs us a lot more than you, obviously. You know what I'm saying? So you do yours and I do over here. So it makes me feel good when when we can have people that have walked this walk, that have, you know what I'm saying, understand what it's like to be in these communities, around our community people, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And go and be able to offer what we have to them. And not have them come outside of their comfort zone in order to come meet you where you are. That's not what we set up for. We signed up to go. We're here to meet you where you are. We're not asking you to come outside of your comfort zone. As a matter of fact, we're here to come inside of your comfort zone and mess it all up for you, right? You know, but not in a bad way. Not in a bad way. We're here to make noise. We're here to do exactly what we're called to do, because this is what we're called to do. Yeah. And I love it when we stay committed to that.
It's a very tricky, it's again a tricky balance because you know, there has to be just better access.
Right. Yes.
But quality care. And it makes me nuts when I see some folks who are in such desperate need But like I said, they don't know themselves. They don't speak psychology. They don't know. This is a completely different landscape than they have been
Right.
exposed to. And, and if you're talking about, as it so often is, things that are generational, then where are they supposed to learn it? Where's, of course they don't know. Well, so what's the answer to that?
Yeah.
There's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way. There's
always a better way. And I think the first step is getting us together.
Yeah.
Which is one of the reasons why when I said I wanted to do a grief conference, right? That was the premise behind it. I didn't know how I was supposed to do it. I just knew I was supposed to do it. And I know enough people from my podcast to where, we all pretty much have the same mindset. I wonder what would happen if we came together and did it on the level to where, we can have that impact. So that's what it's all about, right? It's never been about, me or us on this journey. It's about us as a unit, moving as a unit to do exactly what we're called to do. Because for one, everyone that we're surrounding ourselves with, we all have a specific gift. That's our gift, right? What I'm saying? There has to
be access for that. There must be. There must be. There's too many people
there too,
falling through the cracks.
Right.
Too many people falling through the cracks.
Yeah, we can't have people falling through the cracks anymore because those are the ones that we read in the obituaries. Those are the ones that we get the phone calls about when they're in the hospital because they done already tried to overdose and things like that. We can't let them fall through the cracks because if we keep letting them fall through the cracks, then we won't have a community to even serve anymore.
Yeah,
we just won't. In the time of COVID and now with the Ukraine war and things like that, we cannot afford to let our people fall through the cracks anymore, especially if we have the gifts and the knowledge and the tools to give to them so they can become better. Because we can only do this for so long, right? Eventually, I mean, if we are privileged enough to do it for the rest of our lives, we have to be able to pass the torch on to someone else that's going to take it to the next level and do better, right? So, but it's up to us to pave the way for them. It's up to us to teach them, or add to their knowledge.
Exactly.
To help them be better. So
has to be.
And it's going to take time. It's definitely going to take time, but we have to take the first steps as well. We have to be like, you know what? This is what I'm tired of seeing, and this is what I'm committed to do over here on my half right here. Then you surround yourself with people just like that are committed to it. Then next thing you know, then you have a whole bunch of people that are going, hey, let's go over here and go over here and do this. We're not worried about what's on the outside of our lanes, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Only thing that we're worried about is the people that we're trying to serve. We're committed to them, right?
It's a very, the level of learning that has to happen is so deep.
Right.
There's so much, so much, but you got to start somewhere. I mean, it's just, I feel you when you have to, it's one of the hardest lessons that I've had to process in 15 years of doing this is that I can't help everybody. Not everybody is a right match for me.
Right.
If I can refer someone, that's great. That's no guarantee that that's going to work either. But it took me a long time to really say, there are some folks that I personally can't help, and not to see myself as I failed.
Right.
Right. Because I'm not everybody's cup of tea, and that's totally fine. But to help as many people as you can, or at least say, you know what, I wonder if this program would be better, or I wonder if, have you thought about a group, or have you thought about a retreat, or have you thought about, just a completely different approach? And it's that whole meeting people where they are sometimes means where they are is not in your space.
Right.
And that's tough, but you have to make room for the folks that are right for your practice and how you work, and try to point folks in the right direction. It's very tough because sometimes people go through it's another one of the myths out there is, oh, I'm going to a group, or I'm going to counseling. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And you can do that for years just out of habit.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just like, oh, you've got, that's great. That's great. How's that going? Well, I'm not, I don't know. I feel better when I talk to you.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's not about me. It's about, the idea that you're allowed to say this equation isn't working. But we have this misunderstanding that if you're going to get help, that is automatically the right equation for you. It may not be. I went through quite a number of counselors before I found the right one that was able to turn my key and unlock what was really going on with me and how to guide me towards the healing that I needed.
Right.
So, it's not for me to say, stop seeing your therapist, but are you getting better? Are you learning stuff? Oh yeah, we had a great conversation last week. Cool. Great. Mm-hmm. Do that. Maybe I can add some facets that, the other person is not. That's fine. I see a lot of people in tandem with a lot of different types of practitioners. That's fine.
Exactly.
But it's all about finding the right equation so that their lives can move forward.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that you said that as well, because, I realize that I have no problems with telling someone this is outside of my lane right here. So I'm not the best person to help you in this aspect right here. But with that being said, I have a bunch of resources. Mm-hmm. Let's figure out what you're looking for so we can narrow down and get you the best possible support available. So let's identify your needs. If you're looking, let's identify your needs. Let's identify the community that you will benefit from a lot more to help you thrive in this life and find the healing and the tools, and things that you would need coming from this aspect. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And once you get done with that, you may unlock something else, but we have something else for you as well. We don't want you to feel as if we're going to give up on you, because that's not what we're here for. We've all walked this walk and we know what it's like to have to do it on our own. We don't want you to feel what we felt. That's why we went through what we went through for you. Right. And I promise you, I have no problem with going. I got Claire. Claire knows a little bit more about this than I do. So I want to introduce you to her and everything, because it's just the right thing to do, and it's the best feeling in the world, right? Yeah. It's the best feeling in the world when someone walks away from you and they have that glimmer of hope in their eyes. They have a sigh of relief in their voice. They may be crying, but they got a smile on their face because someone actually took the time to, it's a decompression moment, right? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. They got that smile on their face and they're like, thank you so much. It's not even about the thank you. I want to say thank you for allowing me to serve you. Yeah. Thank you for allowing me to give you something that could benefit from you. Because when I walk away from this, I don't want to have to worry that I'm going to be reading about you in the paper or you know what I'm saying, seeing you on the news. Yeah. When I walk away from this, I want to know that you're in good hands, that, you know what I'm saying, that you understand that we hear you, that we care for you, and that we're here, and you know what I'm saying, that we're willing to go those extra steps and everything for you. Exactly. And so, because that's what we said that we was going to do.
That's what we said. That's the covenant. Yeah. That is the covenant of healing.
That's very, very true. So
that's it.
Man, we can go on forever.
Probably.
Yeah, we can probably go on forever. But
it is not a bad thing, and we will talk soon.
Yeah, we would definitely save it for a part 2, maybe after the conference and everything. I don't want to give too much hype on the conference just yet, but I just want to let people know that we got some amazing things coming up, and hopefully
this is exactly the stuff that I'm going to be talking about, is how to get those things in place before you ask for help. What are the things that someone needs in their psyche before they ask for help? And then how to get quality help, what things need to be working for the help to actually work.
Right.
Those are the things that I'm going to be talking about in my workshop. So
Awesome.
which I'm still writing.
Not a problem. Like I said, that's why we have time. That's why, because I knew everything that was going to happen. I was like, let's give ourselves time to make sure that we create the best possible scenarios for everyone, including ourselves. And we're not rushing or anything like that, you know, and I'm glad that we did it because it's a learning process and everything. But honestly, it can go. We're actually running pretty doggone smooth right now for our first time. You know, we had a few hiccups at the beginning, but now it's just like, okay, we know our roles. We know the next steps that are coming, right? And so we're staying on top of it. We're making sure that people are informed and, you know, being able to answer those questions as they come about, you know?
Right.
But most of all, having people that can answer those questions along with you and you know, to share their knowledge and their expertise as we go along and build this thing. But with that being said, do you have any words for anyone out there right now? Any words of encouragement?
For someone who's
looking for support or grieving right now, from your perspective.
Yeah. Is to take a deep breath and put your self-care first. Be gentle with yourself. Whatever you have been through, it's probably pretty hard and you may be feeling kind of lost at not knowing where to ask your questions. But you are not broken. You may be hurting, and that's okay. That's human. But this is not the end of your story. Your story can be transformed and processed, and you can get some peace in your life. It is doable, and it is not only doable, this is the work. This is what we are here for, is to find our way through. We all have stuff in our way. And most of the time, it's stuff that we didn't ask for. But knowing how to manage that is going to determine how you manage everything. Because you know, we talk about our life plan and we don't list out, oh, well, then my heart's going to get broken. Oh, and then I'm going to lose my job. Or then I'm going to have a scary diagnosis. Or then I'm going to have this terrible loss. Or then we're going to have a global pandemic. We don't have those. We say, oh, I'm going to have this career. I'm going to have this many kids and, you know, the white picket fence or what have you. We list those goals out in our life. But life is also all of the other garbage that happens to you. Sometimes life's just going to come along and kick your table right over, and there go all your plans all over the floor. But then you get to survey everything and go, okay, what do I do now? And how do I navigate that? What do I still need help with? What do I want to keep? What do I need to learn? And how do I move forward? And help is there. Help is there. You are not alone. You will never be alone as long as me and Tony are around.
There you go. There you go.
And, you know, keep looking, keep seeking, keep asking, but take care of yourself on the journey because you are needed and you are human. And sometimes being a human is messy, but that's okay. You're going to be okay.
Yeah. Now, how can people get a hold of you?
Well, the Grief and Loss website is You Can Heal Your Grief. That's where the book is. Whoops, the book.
There it goes. Everything disappeared.
Whoa. Humor helps.
It does.
Humor helps. So that's where the book is, and that's where my blog is. That's where my programs are. Sometimes I work individually on a weekly basis with folks or bi-weekly, but I also have an online program that is 6 months intensive healing work with me personally. You put in more work, I put in more work, and we crank out some amazing tools and healing that can change your life in only 6 months. And So I'm pretty excited about that. Fully online and accessible to anybody with a computer. And, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on LinkedIn, barely on Twitter, but I'm there.
Very, very, very.
Twitter's a strange place, but
I haven't quite figured out Twitter just yet.
Yeah, it's a strange place. I don't know.
It really is.
But so yeah, social media and and email. Shoot me an email. I'm around. And the name of my business is Miriam's Well Healing. So you can find me there as well. That's miriamswellhealing.com. That's the name of my company. Mostly on Gmail. Lots of ways to get a hold of me. So, yeah.
Definitely make sure that information is posted down below.
Yeah,
and,
that would be lovely.
They make sure that they can have all the ways to get in contact with you and everything. So, Claire, I want to say thank you for being on the show today. I mean, we could go forever and ever, but my stomach started growling, and I was like, "Oh,
I know, right?
Something inside of there." I saw you snacking, and I'm over here like, "Oh man, I just ate all my gummies." So,
oops. I'm much healthier than that, man.
And now, see, I am. I got cookies. I got more gummies and another Mountain Dew. Don't ask me what I was doing.
Oh dear.
These things do happen, and for someone who's a personal trainer, I may have to bleep that part out. Okay. But I preach health and fitness to people, and I help them achieve their best bodies. I help them to get better, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. Just going through the trainings that I do. And here I am eating processed foods, gummies, and Mountain Dew, and I have some cookies back there as well.
I got pecans and blueberries. So there.
Oh no! See, I can't even talk to you no more because now you done put all the healthy stuff and carrying on, and I don't even know how to feel about it because I need to be the one with the. We're not even gonna get into that. We're not even gonna get into it. But thank you again, and for everyone who's out there looking at this episode, please reach out to Claire. I'm glad. I really hope you guys take something away from these podcasts. This is the reason why we do it, is for you, and to let you understand that there's people out here that care about you genuinely, that have developed these tools over time. And our goal is to give it to you, right?
Exactly.
So we've walked that path and we struggle so you don't have to. We put together things to where, they're not shortcuts, and it's a lot of hard work, but what you get from it is so much more as long as you put into it. So hopefully everybody has enjoyed these episodes of Memories of Us. And until next time, you guys keep your head up, keep moving forward. And just remember, grief and trauma is just a part of life, but there are people out here who's willing to walk with you. So until next time,
you bet.
Guys, be good and keep your head up.